broadcast.
Cool. Let's do it.
Get ready, baby.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Call Camp Masters Augusta Edition. We actually got Chuck Jones at Augusta yesterday, you lucky SOB. How was it, Chuck?
It was amazing. We actually caught some great weather yesterday. I think they are in the potential of getting rained out right now, so I certainly lucked out in that regard.
Oh, what a shame. Anyway, we're going to be talking today about Gatekeepers. While you were there, I was at the dentist getting that fresh mouth feel, so I'm feeling pretty good over here myself, and the weather is much nicer in D.C. Beautiful spring day. Anyway, let's talk about the topic of gatekeepers. And the topic we put out, getting past gatekeepers, I actually intentionally made that a little bit misleading. This is actually going to be a webinar all about how to leverage gatekeepers to gather information, make best use of the gatekeepers that are there, turn them into allies, supporters, and advocates, and really not so much get around them at all, although certainly there are tactics around calling early or late when the assistants aren't there and those types of things as well. So we're gonna get into all that fun stuff. It's going to be a great session. You just heard the voice of Chuck Jones, who's the Director of Sales Development at SalesLoft. Really excited to have him because his team is doing this stuff all the time. And we're going to be hearing their real calls, their real gatekeeper calls, which is going to be a whole lot of education for all of us to hear how the folks at SalesLoft do this. It's going to be wonderful. Check out the Call Camp hashtag there for tweeting. Appreciate you tweeting. In terms of housekeeping issues, I mean, look, you've all been to webinars before. You can ask questions. If you can't hear us, let us know. We'll be monitoring that, and then I'm going to do a poll along the way as well. So I'm going to do my best with the call volume. Sometimes the call volume's off, so Chuck, do a favor, keep me honest on that. If it's too loud, or it's vibrating and reverberating, and if it's too quiet, you can't hear it. So let me know, okay?
Yep.
Very good. Chuck, what are some just initial thoughts you had on the topic? So when I said to you, hey man, can we do a call camp together on gatekeepers, what were some things that popped into your mind?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it on the head as we started. It's not so much trying to bypass them. Obviously, calling at the beginning of the day and end of the day can help that. It's trying to get as much information as you can from the gatekeeper, so you're better qualified when you do connect with that person, whether it's getting their direct line, just confirming that these are their responsibilities. It's the objective of the call is to always walk away with some nugget, whether it's confirming an email address or obviously, what their direct sell would be. Always walk away with something that you can use later down the road.
Excellent, and we're going to be doing that today. Can't wait. A couple quick things in advance, too. We want to thank Matt Bonatti, my friend who started a company called Youve Known. He helped us promote this today. It's one of our sponsors, if you will. And it's a really interesting tool they have that essentially ferrets out any kind of a system-generated email auto-response to gather the contact information out of those auto-replies and out-of-offices, and then put that directly into your CRM or other tools, if you will, like SalesLoft, because I know you guys are working together. So thanks to Matt for his support at Youve Known. Check it out. Very good. Poll. Everyone, pay attention. We've got a poll here. You can vote. We want to hear what you have to say. Hang on. I'm going to open it right now. How do you handle gatekeepers? And it should be launched. So, Chuck, on your side, are you seeing something launched there with a poll?
Yep. In progress for attendees only. It's on the screen. Good to go.
Beautiful. Okay. I try to get around them. I work with them to get information. And look, I mean, this is kind of a loaded question because the answer is both. It just depends on the situation. It depends on what's happening.
Yep.
Speak to that a little bit. How often do you ever deal with an administrative assistant versus a switchboard operator or a random person who happens to answer the phone in your world, Chuck?
So our guys are typically getting the it's clearly just a round robin of who picks up the phone. So you're not necessarily getting the same person every single time. So it's kind of a 50-50 split of someone picks up, whether it's the sales line or just a random person in the company, or that designated traditional gatekeeper. Not so much executive assistants. In some of the larger companies we call into, we'll deal with that. But for the most part, it's clearly a round robin of who picks up the inbound calls across the sales organization or just the company in general, and then just that designated or the go-to switchboard operator.
There are so many places to call into companies, even the size of companies you were mentioning. You're typically calling like a 500-person SaaS company. There are just so many different folks that have information about what's going on, and I really think that even in our own company, Vorsight, which does outsourced appointment setting, we have to constantly be practicing these skills and these techniques of what do you do, how do you handle these different gatekeeper situations. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, because this phone prospecting has turned into a lost art. With all these incredible data sources that are out there, it's a total lost art. So here's a response here. We had 23% say I try to get around them, and 77% said I work with them to gather information. So let's just focus on administrative assistants and executive assistants for a minute. And very interesting lesson that I took I listened to an episode of the Enterprise Sales Podcast. If you're not listening to this, everyone, I highly recommend you do. What Noah's doing with this is fantastic. It's really outstanding, and he's doing one a day, which is remarkable. And this episode of the Enterprise Sales Podcast was all about an executive assistant at Viacom named Rene Rodriguez, where Noah, being the innovative person he is, interviewed an executive assistant to say, what is it like when you're dealing with salespeople who call you? And who gets through, and why do they get through, and what's your world and your job like, and how does that relate to the vendors that you work with? And here are some of her tips. So normally I have the tips come from someone like Chuck, but in this case, it's so golden because it's the people we're dealing with. And the first thing she said is, there's a big difference between an administrative assistant and an executive assistant. An administrative assistant is probably a pooled assistant to a group of more junior mid-level managers or executives, and they have a variety of responsibilities, but they're not ultimately accountable to one person like an executive assistant. And they really work their way up over time to become an executive assistant from being an administrative assistant. It's a different job. It's a different, they have different information. They get different calls, whereas an executive assistant gets tons of calls all day from people being like, hi, Rene, can you pass me through to Bob, or whatever her executive's name is. The administrative assistants very rarely, if ever, get that kind of call. And of course, every salesperson is doing the same thing. Now, with the executive assistants in particular, they know the business priorities. So when you call a CEO or a CFO or a chief revenue officer at that level, at a big enough company where they still have executive assistants, a lot of them are going away, but when they have them, they know what's going on. They know what the priorities are for the business. Hold that thought, because in the calls we're going to hear that. And this is interesting. They vet everything. So she said they vet everything, and then they send it to the direct report. She basically said on that thing that unless you go to an event and you happen to get lucky and you happen to meet my boss, or you happen to know someone that has a relationship with my boss that's advocating for you, you're not getting through to my boss. You're not getting through to the C-level at Viacom. And I believe it. That is a tough meeting to get unless you have that kind of connection. But you will get a meeting with the direct reports. And this is something that I don't hear prospectors and salespeople doing all that often. It's just simply calling someone like her and saying, who is Bob's direct report in charge of blank? It's a simple thing you can do. And then finally she said, say thank you and show appreciation. And I think in sales we get this attitude that like these people are gatekeepers. They're in the way of us making our quota. And sometimes we can have that come across negatively and reflect as if they're inhibiting us. But rather, if you treat them in a different way, it changes the whole dynamic. Any thoughts on that, Chuck, on some of her tips from Rene?
No, I think it makes complete sense, especially administrative assistant to executive assistant. Administrative, I think it's more typical in a lot of ways where they're just kind of that natural facilitator of people coming in, and they can get you in touch with a couple of different people. And the mindset has to be completely different when dealing with an executive assistant. And then this slide right here is money. Saying thank you and treating everyone like everyone wants to be treated. It's super important. So even just remembering the gatekeeper's name, right? It's super important. So when you do call for that second, third, fourth, fifth time, you're saying, hey Ben, hey Kathy, Chuck again calling with SalesLoft. So you're starting to build that rapport and relationship. So it's not just what do you want, and constantly pushing you off, right? So this last slide's key.
And Chuck, that's an interesting point, because if I look at a lot of people's CRMs today versus what they were, I'm old with gray hair now, 10 years ago, I can actually say that, 10, 12 years ago, we used to religiously track the administrative assistants and the executive assistants, their names, their phone numbers, their email address, cell phones. We had fields for that in our Salesforce. I don't see people, and we still do that, we're kind of old school, but I don't see people doing that anymore as much, and it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
So I'd like to thank our friends at my training business, Funnel Clarity, because there's a lot of science to this. And if you're interested, they gave me permission to use some of their training techniques and intellectual property today. There is a real science to how you approach different areas. So let's spend a minute on that. And everyone grab a pen, because what we're going to do is going to be very, very valuable here. I just want us to think about, Chuck, what are all of the places that you can call into an organization? So for example, certainly an assistant to the CEO would be a wonderful place to call into, because they're going to know the business priorities, or a switchboard operator. You mentioned before the sales line. What are some other places in a company that are not necessarily gatekeepers per se, but have information and are much easier to get on the phone?
Yeah. So sales line is the most obvious given the nature of our business. A lot of places just have the zero, just hit zero and it'll connect you to somebody. Sometimes that's a sales line, sometimes that's the support line, sometimes it's just that round robin of if no one answers, it's going to go to whoever picks up the phone. So that's kind of a mixed bag of who is on the receiving end, but just hitting zero oftentimes can get you in contact with someone, and you just have to be prepared to, maybe you're talking with the support specialist, and then that person still has access to calendars and, a wealth of knowledge of, some of the organizational charts of that organization. So you still have to be prepared to, ask the questions and try to, get the information that you need. And then, sales line, support line, obviously if you have the executive assistant, and then there's just the traditional phone tree that you have to navigate your way through. Sometimes it sends you to the right person. Sometimes it sends you to the other John Smith, right? And you have to be able to be prepared to take that too.
Yeah, the random employee. Sometimes you intentionally do a dial through to a random employee who has a similar name and get the phone number of the person. So let's talk about some other places. You can also go to places like the IT help desk. Most companies, and that's a simple one. Just you go there and you're just simply trying to gather information about stuff that they have in the directory. That's the key. Is what we're trying to do is get people to go into their directory to give us information like the reporting structure, the direct line, cell phone numbers, email addresses. Maybe they know priorities or initiatives. Maybe they know if if someone's traveling or something personal about them, like where they went to college or university, although they probably know that on LinkedIn anyway. But there's a lot of places, switchboard operators at different locations. Most companies are big enough that they have multiple locations. So if you call one location and you call the main switchboard there, they're not going to tell you anything. It's like Fort Knox. But if you go call a different location that doesn't get the volume of vendor calls, just go to the website, look at the different office locations, call there. Or here's another one that most people don't do, call into finance, into the accounts payable people. Accounts payable pick up the phone every single time because they're trying to get paid. And they have all kinds of information on what's going on in the organization. You also have press contacts, which are your corporate communications people. So the whole idea here, what I'm trying to get people to think about is there are a wealth of resources out there, that the average salesperson doesn't even know about. They don't even know that that's a possibility. And we get so hung up on our LinkedIn and our various data sources like the Discover Orgs and the Zoom Infos of the world, and there are many, many other good ones, that we forget how to do this phone prospecting stuff. So that's what we're doing today is we're going to talk about, I saw this at I went to my daughter's auction, school auction, on Saturday night, and one of the things they were selling was tax school for a day. How much fun does this look, Chuck?
Yeah, I was looking at this. It's tactical shooting, tactical movement. Yeah, I mean, looks interesting. Tell me more.
I love the definition. So this is why I put this in here. Tactics are defined as any maneuver used to gain an advantage or success. So think about that. It's not going to work every time, but it's going to gain an advantage. It's going to improve your probability of success. So with that, let's break down some calls. Sound good?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Everyone, just so you know what you're looking at, what you're oriented to, this is SalesLoft's instance of ExecVision. So these are their calls that Chuck shared with my login. In this case, my login is the ExecVision admin. So what you're going to see as we're going through this is a call, and then you'll see Chuck's comments will pop up on this bowling lane here, and my comments for the ExecVision support user are going to pop up here. And Chuck, I'll play, and at any point, Chuck, if you want me to pause it or if you have a comment to make, just yell at me.
Yep, got it.
Thank you for calling Pulse Secure. This is Jill. How can I help you? Jill, hey, I apologize. I realize this is the sales line. I couldn't get a hold of an operator there. I was looking to connect with Chris Stoddard. Was hoping you could help me out. He is at the RSA conference this week. Okay. So that's not going to work, but I can take a message for him. That's okay. I'd hate to interrupt him as he's at a conference. I will just try to reach out to him via email. Okay. Okay. Good. Jill, thank you so much for your help. You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye now.
All right, Chuck, take it away.
Yeah, so obviously if y'all are watching, you saw some of the comments pop up as it came. Obviously we can see that she knows that he's out of the office. So that would have been a great opportunity for us to dive in to ask when he'll be back. Do you have access to his calendar so we can check availability for later next week? And then again, as you can see, what's the best way for me to get in touch with him? Do you have his direct line, etc.? So obviously, you know, good opportunity to dig in and get some more information. Obviously, we know that he's out of the office, so there's no use of, you know, hounding him, you know, the rest of this week, but better strategy for our attack plan for the following week.
Very good. So there are a few things here that I want to make sure that everyone notes. The first is he's out at the RSA conference, okay? Now, my mind goes to a few places when I hear that. First, I think, did Rachel make a note of that in SalesLoft? Because then when she calls him, she can say, how was the RSA conference last week?
Yep, that's important.
And that's super important because, as we know, that's how you get that prospect into System 2. As you know, we've learned from Funnel Clarity the whole notion of how do you get the person, the rational part of the brain, to kick in and get engaged so that they pay attention to what you're saying. The fact that you know they were at RSA is going to differentiate you from every other bozo that's cold calling.
Yep, and that's not just for the cold call, it's also for when you are doing that cold email as well. It's still a talking point, again, to you know, kind of like you mentioned, shift the mindset on the receiving end.
And you always hear our mutual friend and your CEO, Kyle Porter, talk about authentic communication. What a beautiful way in a SalesLoft cadence to create some more tailoring and customization than to put that, you know, hope you enjoyed RSA and it was really productive for you this year or something like that.
Yep.
Now, you'll see my comment here. When you're dealing with, in this case, it sounds like it was the sales line. It would, it really, in any case, I love that she's asking for information, but I'd like to hear Rachel ask for more information, in particular when they said she's out of the office. Okay, what's his extension number so when he comes back I can dial him? How do you dial that directly? I'd like to hear that. What's the extension number? How do you dial that directly? That's a missed opportunity there. And then here's another little subtle one here, but the guy's title is Vice President of Sales, okay? So another important thing and kind of a subtle thing here is in many cases, the people that go to conferences, this rule doesn't always hold, but in many cases, the people that go to events like RSA are the field sales leaders. And for SalesLoft and for what you guys are selling, you're probably going to be better suited going after the sales development leaders, the inside sales leaders. Certainly, SalesLoft can also be used for a field sales leader, but either way, where there's another opportunity here is to find out who else is there in sales. So I'd love to hear Rachel say, who does Chris report up to? Now, I understand Chris is the VP of sales. Do you know if he's the VP of field sales, like he deals with the folks that are outside reps working from home offices, or is he the VP of sales for the inside sales team and the folks that are on the phone calling leads? So asking a little bit more information, because this woman who answered is clearly knowledgeable, to find out what are his responsibilities, or then alternatively, who is his direct report, who's in charge of sales enablement, sales operations, whatever those other areas might be, to gather yet more information to profile that company. Your thoughts, Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. There's a great opportunity to have a better understanding of, what the org chart looks like. And so what's important to do there is obviously have some of that, to term you 3x3 research of, who are the other players in the organization. So then you can reference, hey, I understand Chris is the VP of sales. Does Mike roll up to him? Does Christine roll up to him? I know Christine's in charge of sales operations. Does she report to Chris, or does she report somewhere else in the organization? So then you just have a better understanding and confidence for when we do connect with Chris or we do connect with Christine. We know kind of where everyone lies within the company.
Phenomenal. And actually, we're customers of a company called Consensus. Their software is built for exactly this. How do you drive consensus? So if you're dealing with, and this is SDRs who are listening to this, not seasoned people, but SDRs listening to this, here's where you can really out-qualify your peers and separate yourself from the rest of the pack of your fellow SDRs. If you know more about the political landscape going in to the sale, if you know who the key decision makers are and influencers and how they relate to each other, boy, oh boy, your sales, your closing counterpart is going to love you for it. All right, Angela, our friend Angela Kirkland. She's always in these, so I'm so psyched. Angela, thanks for letting us play your call. And thanks again, Rachel, for letting us play your call. Really appreciate it. So, Chuck, let's get at it here.
Hello, audience. Can I help you?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm trying to reach Peter Rankin. Do you work in the office with him?
I do, yes. Can I ask you around the store?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, can I ask who's calling?
Oh, yes, this is Angela.
Uh-huh. And what's your company name, Angela?
SalesLoft.
SalesLoft. Okay. Let me see if he's around now. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to put him on hold.
No problem. And what was your name?
My name is VJ, V-I-J-A-Y.
Awesome. Nice to speak with you, VJ. Thank you.
I'll make sure I won't cut you off. Bear with me, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Angela.
Yes.
Oh, you're still there. Can I take a message right at the moment?
Yeah, or does he have a voicemail line? I'm happy to leave him a note there.
I'm going to pause it here, Chuck, because I wanted to jump in with a comment. Very subtle and probably hard to hear VJ here, but he said, so Angela said, does he have a voicemail? Which, by the way, Angela, love that you're leaving voicemails. Most SDRs have given up on it. That's a mistake, so that's really good. You want to leave 2 or 3, no more than 3 voicemails in a 30-day period. They still work at a low percentage, but you'll get callbacks. 1 out of every 20 will call you back or so, 1 out of every 30. But this is the subtle point. VJ said, I don't think he has a voicemail, only his mobile. So, Chuck, what could she have done here?
Obviously ask for it. It's BJ seems like a guy that's willing to give information, and even if he was kind of more standoffish, it's still an opportunity to make the ask.
Tactics, right? So that's why I put that slide in with tactics, because it's any strategy deploy to gain an advantage, and that's one of those ones where probability dictates right here. If she asks it, she's got a coin flip that she's going to get it, and if she gets the mobile number, I know Angela is really good on the phone. She gets that meeting, and it's these little subtle things like this, these little tiny turning points in calls that make the difference between, in some cases, getting the meeting and getting the sale versus never even being able to get in the door in the first place.
Yep.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Maybe you can help point me in the right direction. I know he's a CRO. He's a very busy man. The odds of probably getting him to take a cold call are slim. Is there maybe someone on the team that evaluates technology or evaluates the processes for the sales development reps that might be a better point of contact?
Gosh, that's a question. Probably is a Peter discussion, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Probably is in
Let me just confirm. He's just peter.rankin@audience.com.
Yep, how you spelling Rankin?
RANKIN.
That's correct.
Okay.
Audience.com.
Perfect. Okay. Great.
Give that a go.
Yep, I'll try and via email. You may hear back from me later this week. Just trying to do everything I can to connect with him. But thank you for your help.
I'll mention that you called. I'll say your email.
Okay.
All right, Chuck. Feedback.
Yep. So basically, Angela obviously confirmed that Peter is our guy. She asked, is there anyone else responsible for the sales development team or evaluating technology for the sales organization? That's a great question. We're not too sure what VJ's direct responsibility is, so we could have asked the question, hey, so obviously it seems like you're familiar with Peter, you work alongside him, what's your role in the company? Just so we know the context between VJ and Peter's relationship at AutoSense. So that would have been a good opportunity there. But Angela did a nice work, obviously getting some good information here. And then at the end, she does a good job of, hey, this isn't going to be the last time that you hear from me. I will continue to follow up. But she does it in a way where it's, clearly pleasant persistence, not, I'm going to call every single day for the rest of, the month. But she does let them become aware that she's going to try other avenues and she's going to call again, right?
Excellent. Yeah, really good points, Chuck. I'm adding one more comment as I'm hearing you talk. I'm thinking about another thing too. A couple of comments here. First of all, I love that she asked for the direct report, which you've already covered, but she says, who evaluates technology? The guy goes, to be honest with you, it's Peter. Here's another opportunity. You could say, does Peter have a key direct report, or does he have kind of a right-hand person who's in charge of just helping him, almost like a chief of staff, or who is that key right-hand person? I'd love to hear her try to get another name, like you said, in addition to VJ. And here's the final thing that comes to mind, because you're totally right about understanding their relationship. Hey, VJ, what's your phone number? Because now there's a couple reasons why. One, now you can call him back directly. If he happens to not be the person who answers the next time, you have his phone number, and you can have continuity in conversation. But then the second thing is, now you get the format for what their direct line structure looks like at the company. And once you have that direct line format, that structure, it's much easier to ask for extension numbers and then just plug them in, plug the last 3 or the last 4 digits into the overall direct line format. It's a good piece of info to have.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Thanks, Angela. All right, Abby, coming to you. And we're going to do AdWorks. Okay, and I think, yep. All right, Chuck, here we go.
On AdWorks, my name is Drew. How can I help you today?
Hi, Drew. Are you able to connect me to Colin Shepard, please?
Sorry, actually, Colin doesn't have a direct line, and I don't think he's in the office right now. But I'd be more than happy to take your name and your number and get the message to him.
Okay, do you have a cell phone line for him by chance?
I don't have a cell phone number. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, not a problem. This is Abby with SalesLoft.
Okay. Abby with SalesLoft, you said?
SalesLoft, LOFT.
SalesLoft. Got it. Cool. And your number?
770 235
235
5543.
5543. Okay. Any message in particular, or just want to let them know that you called?
You should see my email. It was about the Florida Gators. Do you want to tell him that?
Okay, I'll let him know. All right, appreciate it.
Hey, can you confirm his email for me? I have bshepherd@adworks.
That's the one.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Not a problem. Have a good one.
All right, Chuck, what'd you like about this?
I like that she obviously references something personal, not just another, generic email in the inbox. It allows him to reference, she said something about Florida Gators, I don't know. So then obviously call him and be like, oh, well, I guess I do have something about the Gators in my inbox. So it specifically points to where he can reach Abby back. And then at the end here, she obviously does a good job of, confirming the email address. But again, right, I think the theme here is ask more about Colin's responsibilities, like we saw on Angela's call. We have another CRO here. Ask for a key direct report, and then let's get a better understanding of who's responsible for what inside of that organization.
Yeah, the thing I love, Abby. Yes, I was like, I threw my arms up over here. You asked just point blank, what's a cell phone?
Yep.
You didn't get it? I love that you asked. Awesome. By the way, my hunch is if you call into a different part of the company, like let's say you call the customer support line or the IT help desk or the CEO's admin, going back to our friend Rene Rodriguez and what she was telling us about the CEO's executive assistant, probably AdWorks is going to be big enough that they're going to have an executive assistant for the CEO only, or maybe the president. That's it. I bet you get that cell phone number for Colin if you go in and you do it that confidently. So again, tactics. It's like you asked it, you could flip a coin if you're going to get it or not. You didn't this time, that's okay. If you do it again next time, you're probably going to get it. It's all about probability and managing probability. That's what it's all about. And then what was the other thing here that was caught my ear? I'm trying to remember what it was. No, I think we've covered it. Oh, I know what it was. You could hear at one point that this guy was, and I believe this was either a switchboard operator or a sales line again here, Chuck, right?
Yep.
You could hear him typing. He said, I'm going to take a note. I'd be willing to bet he's slacking Colin. That's my hunch. And if that's the case, that would have been a really cool opportunity, Abby, for you to say, hey, are you just out of curiosity, how are you sending him the message? Are you slacking it over? Yes, I am. Do you guys use Salesforce?
Yep.
So one of the things that you could do here is you can start doing things like, and I'm just going to put a comment in here because I think it's worth noting, ask about the underlying existing technologies like SFDC, because if you're Abby and you're selling SalesLoft, you're the fact that they use Salesforce.com would be a good thing for you because there's a high probability most of the SalesLoft customers, I suspect, are also using Salesforce, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point. I don't know if we cover it on one of these calls that we're going to go over today, Steve, but calling into the sales organization is a great opportunity for fact finding, just like you mentioned. If you're dialing into the sales organization and, the likelihood it's an individual contributor picking up on the other end, that can be just a super, super brief, super casual conversation. Hey, no, I called into the sales line here. I assume you're a member of the sales organization. Yeah, no, duh. Hey, quick question for you. Are you guys using Salesforce as your CRM? Awesome. And then literally that's a win for you. You've done research on the account and, you didn't necessarily disrupt anyone else's day, but then when you are calling into that prospect, with certainty that they're using that as the CRM. So good point to bring up there.
Absolutely. Put yourself in a salesperson's shoes. What information do they have very easily and readily accessible? You could also ask about the sales team size. Hey, out of curiosity, I love how you said quick question, Chuck. That's beautiful. Hey, quick question for you, just out of curiosity, how many salespeople do you have, like total customer-facing sales people in the company? SDRs, quota-carrying inside reps, field reps, sales engineers, whatever, customer success. About 30. Great. Now, right off the bat, that's qualified. It's a big enough opportunity for SalesLoft for Abby's counterpart who sells. You could also ask about stuff like, maybe if it's sales kickoff season, which is really between January and April, you could say, oh yeah, question for you too. Do you guys have any kind of big events coming up, like a sales kickoff meeting, or if there's like a big industry trade show? Again, more information that you can leverage, just like we talked about RSA before. Abby, thank you very much for letting us play your call. Appreciate that. All right, let's go to Kenny. And then after Kenny, we're gonna play one of my old prospecting calls, so you're gonna be able to critique me, Chuck. All right?
Yep. And then I think this, to preface this one, this is more of kind of one of those fact-finding calls. So a good use case of, just trying to get clarity around a target account that you're trying to penetrate.
Very good. All right, let's do this.
Good morning. Thank you for calling DataZoom. How may I help you?
Hey, I have a bit of an odd situation here. So I know Greg is no longer with DataZoom. I had sent some information to him recently, and then I spoke with Rob a couple weeks ago, Rob Chamberlain. So this morning I had someone that was looking over the emails that I sent to Greg previously. Do you know who that might be, or if there was some interest there, or who I should follow up with?
Rob would be who you would follow up
Okay.
with. Yeah, so do you want me to transfer you to his voicemail?
I have Rob's
You already left him?
I haven't left him a message. I wanted to see if he was the one that might have been opening those emails before I called his direct line.
Oh, yeah, it would be Rob.
Okay, perfect. I will give him a call. And actually, he mentioned when I spoke with him last week, you had someone else who's starting to replace Greg. Has that person started, or is that next week?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much.
All right, Chuck.
Yeah, so I think, this call's a unique one. There's intentionality behind the placement of this call, and it's really just, let's see if the new person has started, and let's verify that Rob is the guy that I should be, putting my effort into. Because I think one of the worst things is, kind of, spinning your wheels, just dialing and dialing to a guy that you think is the person that you should be, getting in touch with. So kind of leveraging your resources, just calling into, a random line to try to do the fact finding to make sure that, your penetration is, and your kind of emails, cold calls, whatever it may be, are going towards the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is a situation where, Kenny, you've got completely the right idea. There are some things you can clean up in your execution, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you were dealing with, it sounded like a typical receptionist / switchboard operator who she's probably not going to give you the kind of stuff you're looking for. So here's a couple of tips. The first tip is regarding, oh, by the way, I really loved your opening that you said you didn't identify yourself with a switchboard operator, and then you said this whole thing. There was something that was really interesting and unique there, Chuck. What was this unique opening?
I'm in a bit of an odd situation here.
Yeah, beautiful. Love that. Okay, so now let's go to the feedback. I love that I'm in a bit of an odd situation, but your next thing shouldn't have been about I sent an email, somebody left the company, somebody's opening the email. It was just like it confused her, and it kind of started to read like this person's not really supposed to be here. So if the switchboard operators think you're supposed to be there, they think you have a relationship with the company, they tell you all kinds of stuff. But as soon as some like switch flips in their head where they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about here, or this story sounds sort of like a contrived story, even though it's real, they're going to stop. So this is where I'd like to instead have you say, hey, do me a favor, do you have a directory handy? So ask about a directory, and ask if you could take a look, because I understand Rob's no longer, whoever it was no longer there, or somebody's looking at his email or whatever. Just say, does Rob have a person who checks his email when he's out? Or if you could take a look in the directory, who's the replacement for Rob or Matt or whoever that other person is? So ask very direct, pointed, specific questions. And if she says, I don't know, say, can you take a look in the directory for me real quick? So that's my first piece of feedback, is clean that up so that it's very specific, very pointed, There's no fat in the communication, if you will. Second point, full stop, second point. Call this place back at lunchtime and ask the same questions. When this receptionist goes to eat, there will be a backup. And there was this old Sports Center ad that was pretty funny. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember this, where Tony Romo, the former quarterback Cowboy, he was acting as a receptionist at ESPN. Remember that one, Chuck? And he was looking at his like wristband for what the people's phone numbers were?
I actually don't recall that one, but I know that, yeah, no, I'm drawing a blank there.
You're too young. Some of the older people out there will remember it. Google Tony Romo switchboard operator at ESPN. It's one of those funny ESPN ads. And he looked under his play chart on his wristband to look up someone's extension number. So here's my whole point. Someone is going to be a backup. Go take advantage of when that backup's there. Get more information. Get more of what you need.
Bingo.
Awesome. All right. So changing gears. I'm dusting off an oldie but a goodie here. It wasn't done by Bill Ball. He's our training director. We just manually uploaded it some time ago. But we're going to go and listen to one of the calls that I made to an administrative, in this case it's actually an executive assistant, some time ago. So let's pay attention here, and then these comments from basically what I'm thinking as I'm talking will pop up along the way.
This is Heather.
Hi, Heather. This is Steve Richard. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good, good. Are you Jeff Guy's assistant? I know he's no longer there, but
I am, yes.
you were. How long ago did he leave?
April 24th.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago then. That's why I was a little confused. Quick question for you. I'm hoping you can help me out. Shyam Oberoi is the head of IT, correct?
Sham, yes.
It's pronounced Sham?
Yes.
Okay, great. And do you know who he reports up to?
His director is the deputy director, Rob Stein.
Okay, hang on. Rob, how you spell the last name?
Stein, S-T-E-I-N.
And he's the deputy director of what area?
He's the deputy director of the entire museum.
The entire museum. Okay, that's what I thought. So Shine is he's the senior most person who specifically handles the IT and technology department.
Correct.
Okay, great. Do you know the name by chance Don Rika or Reka?
Dan Rika.
Oh, it's Dan, not Don.
Correct.
He's in the server room, right?
Right.
Okay, do you know, is he on Shine's team?
Yes.
He is. Okay, so Dan reports to Shine, Shine reports to Rob.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
This is really, can I ask a little bit of background on this? You asked a lot of questions.
No problem. No, we have a new initiative to reconnect with some folks that have worked with us in the past, and you guys have, and specifically within mid-sized organizations like the museum. And that's why I just wanted to update who we should be speaking with, understand who we're talking to. We've had conversations with lots of these guys before. So
right.
Everybody changes over the years, and just trying to keep up to date. That's all.
Right, and I'm trying to think of what division of teams you are working for. CNA, you have computers, they have printers, they have computers, all kinds of stuff. So specifically.
Exactly. So I'm in the group specifically that does server network storage. So the things that would more or less exist in the data center, the server room, those types of things. Less like people's computers. Or printers, right? And a lot of people associate us with more with that, and less with the servers and the storage and the networking, etc.
Right, exactly. Well, Dan would be the first point of contact. It would be the first person I talk to, and he's generally pretty, forthcoming, and if there's any way for him to save, he's going to jump at the chance. So.
Oh, really? Okay, that's.
Obviously, this has to go through the chain of command, and everybody has to make these decisions on us. But if there is a way to cut costs and still have, retain the same amount.
I'm going to pause here. Okay, so far we haven't heard getting any direct lines and extension numbers, but we have heard how you can get the reporting structure figured out and what to do in case. What is this regarding? So, Chuck, any comments on what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I think it's a great example of coming in with some background knowledge on the company already. One of the comments that you popped up is more kind of horse trading, right? And so it's super important to have a general idea of how things are structured now, so you're not just, kind of, bullshitting your way through it. So you have an idea of where you're trying to take it. I think that's super important. And then again, eventually it gets to the point where you've asked a ton of questions where she's going to throw up a little bit of the guard. And then you do have a good reason, right? So then she kind of feels, she can allow you to continue to ask questions. Went a little long-winded there, but I think, at the end of the day, you gave her the appropriate, she probably has a checklist of answers that she needs to hear before she, feels comfortable moving forward. And, it wasn't super invasive. We've worked with you guys in the past. I'm making sure that everything's up to date on my end so we can obviously better serve you. So I think that was super important and a critical point of the call.
And that's such an important thing to do. One of the things that SalesLoft does that I love, they have this exercise where every morning they do something called marbles in the mouth. And that's where you just throw out a really quick, like, what does SalesLoft do? What is this regarding? You have to have very crisp answers to those kinds of things. And when she says, what is this regarding? You're asking a whole lot of questions. Oh, pardon my manners. The reason I'm calling is we have a relationship and I'm calling to update my records. And to your point, I rambled a little bit there. I could have been more crisp for sure. But that's what you need to do. You have to have a very good comeback answer. There's actually psychology to this. I read a book called Influence at the urging of John Barrows, and in Influence they talk about any time that you have an answer to why. If someone says why or what, or like if you got a real quick question and then they say, and you say, because blank, it almost doesn't even matter what follows the word because. I wrote a blog article about this. It was called The Power of the Word Because in Sales. It just matters that you have a because. It's kind of like little kids. They're like, can I have another cookie? No. Why? And if you don't have a good answer, you're dead. But if you go, because you already had two, they go, you're right, and then they walk back outside and start playing again. So you just have to have the answer for what is this regarding, really crisp, always have your becauses. Now, this is what you're going to notice here. That's why I paused it. She opens up and becomes my advocate. So because I know information, because she thinks I'm supposed to be there, now listen to what she tells me, like everything.
Kind of capabilities that we have, but it's always a good thing. So.
That's the name of the game in technology, isn't it?
Right.
Do you have Dan's number?
I can give it to you. Hang on.
And you'll hear me get greedy too, Chuck.
1830. I'm sorry. 922-1830. It's the same as mine, but at 1830.
1830. Right. Yeah. Okay. So 922-1830. And then if I could also have Shimes too.
Okay. Sham is.
Sham. Okay, I gotta say it right. Sham.
Like think of Sean.
Sean, right? But Sham with an M.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm not showing him on this yet. He's really new. So.
Oh, he's new?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
He's been here, less than a month. I mean, just less than a month.
I'm going to credit my friend Craig Elias on this one. New executives, within the first 100 days of a new executive's tenure, an enormous amount of discretionary spending happens. So executives are turning over all the time. Following people to their new companies is critically important. You have to do that religiously, and finding new people who are new in seat is the best probability of getting a sale. So let's keep going.
Well, we don't have the company. I think so.
Okay, SOBEROI@dma.org.
Yes.
You know what?
EROI.
Okay, right.
EROI.
EROI. Yep, that's what I thought. Okay, that's a tricky name. And then, I mean, obviously, Rob's going to do the same thing. Do you? It's clear you seem fairly knowledgeable. Do you know why he was brought in? Are there any projects, initiatives, anything like that going on right now?
Oh my gosh, there's all kinds of projects and initiatives. I'm not privy to all of them. I mean, obviously we started the Friends and Partners program, so the museum is free. But we also want to encourage people to join our Friends program and they get perks, so there's like little point systems, things like that.
Okay, so let's pause there. And this is directly from the lessons and the learning from Rene Rodriguez when she was interviewed on the Enterprise Sales Podcast. And by the way, I did this call many years ago, well before I ever heard her say this, but it was perfect how it lined up. Because I said, Do you know, you sound like you're knowledgeable. Do you know if there are any initiatives or any projects? Basically, why was this new executive brought in? What are you trying to do? And she says, oh, geez, there's all kinds of them. I'm not privy to all of them. But I don't know if you heard this, Chuck, but she said, we have a new initiative called the Friends and Partners of the Museum. Boom. So I've got like a big museum initiative that goes all the way to the most senior person at the museum, which is an executive director in the world of museums. That's like their CEO.
Yep.
And now, in all my communications afterwards, I was able to reference this big initiative, the Friends and Partners program, which again shows them that I'm aligned with what they care about. Your thoughts, Chuck?
Yeah, I think that's super important. And so if you can obviously align, if that's a company initiative, you know, whether you're talking to, you know, I believe it was Dan or, you know, one of his direct reports, you can still speak to the fact, hey, understand that, you know, this is a huge initiative. What role do you play in this, right? So it allows you to align yourself to the company-wide initiative, but then allows you to have an opportunity to ask a question of the part that they play in said initiative. So I think that's super important. And then, like you mentioned, it's a game of probability. She could have had the answer. She could have not. But because you used the cue of, hey, sounds like you're super knowledgeable, I'm going to go for the ask, right? And I think that's the same thing that you can use when, you know, hey, they're in a meeting right now, or they're out of the office. You know, it's not necessarily as juicy as you're going into here, but anytime someone makes a reference of they're in a meeting right now, they're not in the office right now, great, you know, sounds like you have availability. You're able to check their availability. Can, you know, I get, you know, their calendar, when are they open? Can you check their, you know, direct line, et cetera? So I think that's a good play there, just using the cues to identify when to dig deeper.
Beautiful. I'm shedding a tear over here, Chuck. That's such great feedback, because for so many, especially junior salespeople, they don't hear the cues. They don't listen. You have to get good at listening and hearing the cues, and they're subtle. You've heard in these calls, they are subtle, and if you miss them, you miss an opportunity, and you decrease your chance of getting in the door. So again, I want to say thanks to my friends at my training business, Funnel Clarity, for allowing us to use some of this knowledge and content today. It's really great. I'm going to take it to some questions now. While we do, I'm putting up a call to action. Hey, everyone, if this was helpful, please submit your call. Shame on me, I actually haven't been checking the folder, but I'm going to prior to the next call camp. And I'd love to see if there are some calls submitted. So if you want an expert like Chuck Jones providing feedback on one of your calls, it's just a remarkable opportunity. And it's free, and it's always free. Every month we've got free sales training, people. Free! It doesn't get any better than this, so take advantage of it. All we're asking for you to do is submit a call. If you're concerned at all about call recording laws, there's a brief on our website you can download that will show you what states you can be in to do this legally without having to notify the other person. Or you can always say, hey, do you mind if I record this because I'm in training? It's a very simple thing to do. All right, so let's go take a look at questions. I don't know if we have any, but everyone, if you've got questions or comments, jump on in here. Ask them. Oh, we do. Ooh, look at this, Chuck. Looky here. Hold on. I just got to figure out how to work this thing. All right. Hold on. Oh, so it sounds like you had a fellow comrade in Greer who is at the Masters on Monday. Ah, good for you.
Nice.
How are you handling those executive assistants or the AAs that say, I'm not allowed to share contact information? Harrison asked that question.
Great question. I think it's pretty common. You know, that's when you just have to connect with them on a, you know, human level. Again, remembering their phone number, remembering their name. You might not get anything on the first call, second call, but we've seen guys successful on the third call. Hey, Sharon, right? You know, this is Kenny calling again from SalesLoft. You know, I don't want to be a pest. You know, I don't want to, you know, keep, you know, interrupting your day. What's the best way for me to get in contact so I can make sure that, you know, I'm not a hindrance to your workflow, right? So you're obviously putting it again into I'm trying to help you out, so help me help you type of scenario. So we've seen success. Again, it's the probability game, right? It's not going to work every time, but we've seen SDR successful, and just remembering. So when they do call, you're just, hey, hope your day is going well. How can I, help not be a hindrance to you? I think that's a unique approach to take. So whether you're, just writing down that person's name on a notepad or in your CRM, I think that's an important step. And then you just got to continue to kind of make the ask, what's the best way for, me to get in contact with them if I'm not able to get passed through to them now. And then again, just getting unique, you might have to use a Twitter direct message or LinkedIn, have a really
call early before the admin's there or late or at lunch, absolutely. And Harrison, another thing, if they say I'm not allowed to share contact information, hey, I totally respect that. Hang up, go call somebody else. Like we said before, there are so many different places. Call the CEO's EA because as long as you don't talk to the CEO, they don't care. They'll tell you anything about any of the other direct reports.
Yeah,
they just want you to leave the CEO alone. So
that's also a good opportunity to hit 0 on the call tree. So it's not necessarily their, administrative assistant or executive assistant. It's just somebody completely random in the organization. So that's when you just kind of use the call tree to your advantage of, I'm just going to get in contact with literally anyone that will talk to me that's not this person, right?
There's another tip there to cut you off, Chuck. There are voicemail codes that my friends at Funnel Clarity keep close guard over, where based on the phone system, if it's like your call is being answered by Audix, you can actually punch in a code and get the extension number of the person that you're calling on through it. It's not a dial by name, but it's an extension lookup by name. So there's a lot of things you can do, Harrison, when you get that I'm not allowed to share info. Just say, oh, I understand, be respectful, and try something else. I had Spencer ask, how many voicemails did you mention in a certain period of time? It's the research is very clear and specific on this. 2 to 3 voicemails in a 30-day period. No more than 2 to 3 voicemails in a 30-day period. The testing that we've done has indicated that if you leave 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it will decrease your likelihood of them even responding to an email. So it's going to hurt you because you're going to become an annoyance. So 2 to 3 voicemails in a 30-day period. Betty just had more of a tip than anything else. She wrote, anytime I leave a voicemail, I normally will also follow up with an email. People do not listen to voicemails, and if they answer, a lot of times their cell phone number is in their signature. This is a big one. If all of you aren't doing this, start doing this immediately. When you hit holidays, Memorial Day is kind of the next big holiday that's coming, and then we'll go 4th of July, then we'll go Labor Day if you're in the U.S., and then Thanksgiving, and then, of course, like Christmas and all those things. If you're at a holiday, send out a mass email. And, of course, you can use a tool like a SalesLoft Cadence to send out a lot of these, but make them very authentic and personal. But send that out on the holiday and get the out-of-offices. Because most of the time, the out-of-offices will have a cell phone number or alternate contacts. And, again, that's why Youve Known even exists, because Youve Known can even mine that data out of there and put it in your Salesforce and your SalesLoft for you.
Yep. John Birdsong does that very well. Does a Happy Thanksgiving, Happy New Year every time. And, it's not insincere. He probably does actually wish you a happy New Year. But again, the amount of direct dials that you get as a result of that is a nice add.
Beautiful. Sarah asks, I'd love to know what you typically respond with the person who answers the phone and asks, what are you calling about? What is this regarding? I think we covered that one, but Sarah, what you need there is a very pointed response to what is this regarding, and you say the topic. You heard that in one of the calls we heard today. Did you notice how he said, I'm calling regarding your sales process? You don't say I'm calling to sell you something or I'm calling about my product or any of that kind of stuff. You say I'm calling regarding your blank, and then fill in the blank for whatever the topic it is that your solution helps that company address, which is great. People are asking if the deck will be available. Yes, it will. If you email me, steve@execvision.io, I'll share it with you, and also this will all be recorded so that you can all share it with other people who weren't on here as well. Let me see if there are any other last meaty ones here. Boy, there's a lot of comments and questions. You know what? I just don't think we're going to have time, Chuck, because we're hitting our limit here. But hey, Chuck, I got an idea. Maybe, and I'm going to throw you on the spot here, I could send these questions from these folks, and maybe you could get each of your SDRs at SalesLoft to draft a response, or maybe I'll ask my friends at Funnel Clarity to do so, and we could post a blog on it. and answer some of these questions because there are so many good ones.
Sounds like a great idea, Steve.
Awesome. All right, hey everyone, thank you so much for your time. And I'm sorry we can't get to your questions. I've never seen so many questions come in all at the same time. But if you want to talk about this, my cell phone number, here's an invitation, is literally sitting on my LinkedIn profile. So if you want to, I drive in at 8 a.m. in the morning on the East Coast, and I drive home at 5:15. If you ever want to ask any of these questions or pick my brain, shoot me a text during that time, and I'm more than happy to just chat with you while I'm on my drive home. All right, Chuck, enjoy the Masters. Stay safe down there in Atlanta with that crazy weather.
Yep, I will. Hopefully no tornadoes today. Awesome, Steve. Thanks again.
Take care.